for film growing up, and going to an all-girls school for 12 years kind of instilled in me this feminist side where, you know, I have always believed that a woman can be just as good as a man in anything. As I got older and older and I was watching these action films, I've noticed that they really walk this fine line, because we see these women more and more taking on these lead roles, yet they're super like hypersexualized, they're emotional, usually the plot is driven by a man. And I've been hearing a lot of people lately, you know, saying, well, yeah, these women are taking on these lead roles and it's great, they are equal to men. So, you know, we've done what we can in film and we've made it there. And then, you know, I've asked myself, like, have we really? I don't really think so. And I guess that's what gave me, or sparked my interest in this documentary, is finding out, have we truly become equal to men in film?
The history of women in the action genre of film is very interesting. I don't know if many people realize that back in the early days in the silent, here in America, there weren't so many women that were action heroes as women that were the cause for the hero to go into action.
In the early days, it was the men that were most threatened by a tough woman. Men are threatened by women that hold their own and that are confident. And especially, they're very skeptical about any woman beating a man's butt.
Film noir is a really interesting aspect because, I mean, in that it's just the feminine pattern. You know, which is very, very more alluring and sexually dangerous than Holly Curran.
In America, there weren't so many women that were action heroes as women that were the cause for the hero to go into action.
Over time, obviously she's become tougher, but I don't think that the sex appeal has changed much in that. Maybe our perceptions of sex appeal have, but in order to, again, gain that audience and utilize it.
Blaxploitation films was the first round of movies that really put women, and men for that matter, into roles of empowerment. It was a time in cinema where white leading roles were anti-heroes, French Connection, Bonnie and Clyde, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and yet in black films, African Americans were seeing themselves in a way they had never seen themselves, as the heroes, as the protectors, and even, you know, thinking of Pam Grier and Foxy Brown. Action movies really aren't made to appeal to women. Not that there aren't women out there that don't like action movies, but really the demographic is like, you know, preteen boys through early teen, you know, through late teen boys.
It's really hard unless you get a chick flick to find anything that really means something and that features women. And that seems such an odd thing that even though we're half the population, we're still a niche audience.
For sure, women have a much wider range of emotion. They're more likely to have been intimate with a guy that they're blown away in the climactic scene.
Throughout my research, I did a textual analysis looking at Terminators 1 through 4. And what I found was, in the first Terminator, we see the main character, Sarah Connor, who's submissive, she's weak, and she's really emotional. And this really comes out in the scene right before she gets intimate with the other main character, Kyle Reese, where, you know, she wakes up from sleeping and she's crying and going over to him for comfort. And you can see, even in the positioning, how she's less equal to him because he's in the foreground, his back is to her, and he's occasionally looking back to make eye contact with her while they're talking. Going back to the emotional factor, Reese expresses his love for Sarah Connor. And in doing so, he gets really upset with himself for being emotional and open. He's reinforcing the notion that men aren't supposed to be emotional, but women are. In Terminator 2 Judgment Day, we now see Sarah Connor, who is more muscular, she's less submissive, and she's also more in control. She's made a lot of progress since the first film to be becoming more equal to a lead male that would be in her position, because she's more violent. You know, we see her attacking her doctor in a session. We see her breaking his arm when she's trying to escape and holding him hostage. And later on, we see her shooting at another character, Miles Dyson, trying to kill him. And when she's on the verge of killing him at gunpoint, her emotion takes over and prevents her from following through with it.
You know, there is a certain genre of action films that really just show violence against women. At one point I taught screenwriting here at the college where I teach, and one script in particular sticks out in my mind where a kid wrote a script about two guys that go around raping women with glass-sharded dildo. And it's like, really? That's what you think is entertainment? And I just don't get it, and yet it seems to be so prevalent, and maybe that's because it's, you know, while certainly women have become more present in the film industry, it's still very much a male-driven industry, and while there are certainly women out there greenlighting projects, there are probably more men greenlighting projects.
Even though male sexualization does occur in the mass media, and even it can be seen in the Terminator series with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm not so sure that it's to the same extent that women face.
You have a single female in the movie who is the action figure, and Tomb Raider is a great example of this. So we have beautiful Angelina Jolie, padded way out to here, so she has these sort of grotesque, enormous breasts in the film. So we've had to sort of caricaturize even a beautiful woman like that, even more sexual, you know, sort of make her more comic booky. And she does not pass the female friendly test for a film. There is not another woman in the film. She does not have a name, and Angelina does not have a conversation with her. So the idea that men take a sort of sexual image of a superwoman and put her out there doing things that aren't the things that women do. So they've just made a sort of, they've taken a guy and given him boobs and a vagina, and then put it up there as, see, we've got a woman in the film. But it's just a reflection of themselves that they've made into a woman, right? So it doesn't really count as being part of that liberation of women in films, of really showing what women really do, how they really behave, the things about us that are different than men that make us spectacular.
Every woman has the power of sexuality on her side, and, you know, would we be stupid not to use it? Probably, you know, but it definitely see a lot of the action hero women action heroes also incorporating their sexuality and winning the action.
I was thinking about Transformers and Megan Fox, and everybody was really going, oh, you know, she's kind of a tough broad in that movie, but Laura Mulvey kind of said, her theory kind of says that you put a woman up on screen and she's going to be objectified in some way. And if you look at the way Megan Fox is dressed, that she almost always has some sort of tight top on with things up where they should be, that completely defeats the purpose. Action films are, I think they walk a fine line, because I think they really want to show tough women, but I also think there's that unconscious, or probably actually conscious knowledge that she needs to be tough and hot at the same time.
In Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, we're now introduced to the TX. Since Sarah Connor has passed away, the TX is now the lead female role. We see that she's super sexualized throughout this entire film. From what she wears to also a point in the film where they actually make fun of that sort of sexualization of females when she gets pulled over by a cop sees the Victoria's Secret billboard ad, and you see her breasts start to grow to match those of the Victoria's Secret billboard, so that she can get out of her ticket for speeding. So then we see the standoff between the TX and the Terminator. And even in the way that she's engaging in her violence with him, she's really sexualized. At one point, they fall through the ceiling, and she wraps her legs around him and twists to face him, and then starts, trying to hit him. And what's really interesting in this particular point of the film is that it could almost be compared to a rape scene in the way that the Terminator is attacking her and performing violence. So then we see a shift from the original Terminator that came out in 1984 and Terminator Salvation that came out in 2003, where, we see a submissive woman, then she gets strong, and then she's replaced by another woman who's hypersexualized. And then we come to the last one, Terminator Salvation, where women are entirely absent from the film. It's hyper-masculinized, and there's a lot of violence, a lot more than in the other films. So where do we go from here?
Showing emotion on film and women showing emotion on film is a really important thing, and I think it needs to be done in the context of really what we show emotion about, right? So that women are better at expressing loss or love or, compassion. Those are our strengths. That's one of the things that I'm sure scares men, but it is a definite strength.
The real, I think, trick for women to focus on is be tough, but have that feminine, sensitive side about you as well. So people want to protect that, but you can do that yourself. And I think that makes the character much more fascinating.
Film definitely reflects what we're thinking, feeling, doing, saying. It's a reflection of us. Definitely, the culture has changed enough and created this kind of sexualized view of the world, and that's what we're reflecting back to us in our movies.
Maybe one brave person needs to make that movie that shows these changes, and then maybe everyone will hop on board because they'll see that people will go to it.
We need to populate the writers' rooms with more women. We need more women directing. But, women have to talk with their wallets, right? Spend the money on the stuff you want to see the movies about women. If we demand more in terms of that kind of product, then of course they're going to make it for us. So, always supporting on opening weekend interesting films about women.
What I've come to realize through this journey is, do we really want to see women being violent in film? Personally, I like that we're emotional and less violent than men. I don't necessarily think that makes us, less equal to them. Maybe what needs to happen here is a reinvention of the action hero, not the action heroine. Maybe men need to be more emotional like women are, because personally, if it's our emotion that is preventing us from being violent, why is that a negative thing? It shouldn't be. I've always had this dream to work in the entertainment industry. So it's inspired me to, try and make sure that there's more equity in films between men and women. So that's definitely something in a movement that I want to be a part of.